Alright guys, Jameson and Alex here. Today we are bringing you the Osteomancer Wizard from STEINHARDT'S Guide to the Eldritch Hunt. So, if you're new to the channel, what we're going to do is go through all the abilities gained in the subclass. Then we're going to rate the roleplay, combat, and synergy based on how the abilities gained in the subclass improve on the base class abilities.
That's right.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to be entered in our D&D Beyond Source Book Bundle giveaway. All that being said, let's get right to it.
Quick aside, before we get deep into the abilities, the artwork in this place is immaculate. You can see there, that's terrifying. First of all, I don't think it's a wizard when I first see that, which makes it even more cool. I'm thinking more warlock or maybe even sorcerer, and that's just like hyper aggressive. But there's a necromancy wizard, so it kind of feels like just visually it's in that vein. But that artwork is just,
Yeah, definitely
it's immaculate.
Very in the dark fantasy.
Just a little
for
bit.
sure.
So on our first actual ability that we get is Brittle Bone Armor. Learn the basics of Osteomancy using it for protection. As a bonus action, if you are not wearing armor or wielding a shield, aka you're a wizard, you can force a frame of bones out of your body to protect you. This grants you temporary hit points equal to 2 times your level in this class. The armor lasts for 1 minute or until you lose the temporary hit points. While you have these temporary hit points, you gain resistance to slashing and piercing damage and gain a bonus to AC equal to 1/3 of your level in this class. Rounded down, minimum of 1. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a short or a long rest.
Okay, that's pretty wild, actually. So you're getting 2 times your level temp HP. That lasts for a minute. So at max level 20, you're going to have 40 temp HP.
Yep. Which is going to be, what, another 30 to 40% of your max health? Because you're a wizard.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a good chunk.
And then resistance to slashing and piercing damage. So while you have it, it's not going to be depleted as quickly from that damage type.
You're going to be harder to get exploded by like single sources of damage instantly because you got to eat through that resistant shield.
And then at level 20, you also get +6 to your AC.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. But it is once a short rest as well.
Good, keep that in mind.
And if you're just taking from physical damage, that's a huge defensive. But from magical damage or anything non-BPS slashing, yeah, basically. All right, let's keep moving past this artwork again,
which is great.
Also at level 2, we have Anatomical Expert. Your pursuit of osteomancy has required many hours studying the anatomy of a myriad of creatures. You gain proficiency in medicine checks, and when you make a medicine check, you gain a bonus to the check equal to your intelligence modifier. In addition, when this check concerns a creature that possesses a skeleton, you add double your proficiency bonus to the check instead of your normal proficiency bonus. So again, most times it's going to be
right
outside of like a gelatinous ooze or something.
Yeah, oozes, plants,
Sure.
Aberrations? The aberrations have skeletons?
I think it would be situational, depending on...
Yeah.
that's
Most
a
monstrosities do, I feel like.
Per monster, yeah. But yes, a little bit of RP. It's medicine, so it's a little bit more on the niche side, but if it's kind of like even for something like a investigation for like a crime scene kind of thing, it could possibly come into play. So there's some niche uses with that, and it's a pretty good bonus as well.
And if that's one of those things, because it specifically talks about like skeletons and things, like it kind of bleeds over into survival a little bit. Depends on how that's flavored, how you're going to use that. So you got to, if you're kind of on board with your DM and you're kind of clever about how you want to try to use your knowledge to get in there, maybe you can kind of wiggle that into some kind of partial bonus in other places, depending on how lenient your DM was with specific stuff like that. But either way, it's good to give a wizard some just cast your RP spells RP.
Yeah, for sure.
Next up at level 6 is Bone Puppetry. As an action, you focus your grim magic toward a creature with bones within 60 feet of you. It must make a strength saving throw against your spell save DC. On a failure, you take total and precise control of its skeleton. Until the end of the creature's next turn, it only takes the actions you choose and doesn't do anything that you don't allow it to do. In the creature's efforts to resist your command, attack rolls it makes against its allies have disadvantage, and its allies have advantage on saving throws from effects caused by the creature. You can only have one such creature under your control at a time. You can use this feature number of times equal to your intelligence modifier and regain all spending uses when you finish a long rest. So it's essentially a dominate monster with more restrictions, and it is a strength save as opposed to a wisdom save.
Right, which I feel like a lot of times strength saves aren't going to be as reliable, but I mean,
Especially
it just depends
not
on what
later
you're
on.
hitting. Yeah, because a lot of things get big and strong.
I mean, let's think about it this way though. It would allow you to gain control of enemy casters if they're humanoid casters.
That's your best
target. Because they're going to have advantage on saving throws against it. But if you're like burning their spell slots to throw their fireballs at their own allies, even if they have advantage on the saving throws, it's not coming at you, and you're spending their turn to do at least a little bit of damage to their own ally.
Sure.
Or have it fireball itself.
Yeah, I guess that's a little bit of DM discretion as well, because like thinking of what you're doing is like depending on what is being cast, it's like you're controlling its skeleton, so there's a little bit of gray area there, because it's like if a spell has a verbal component,
and you know
what I mean, like are you actually
working those? You can work the jaws.
I mean,
like,
you know what I mean. There's a little bit of gray area there. I guess for DM discretion.
Like,
could you force it to cast spells possibly? But also, how would you know what spells it knows as well? You know what I mean? So there's a little bit of...
Now, there's the more, I think, likely counter to it is you only cast what you've seen it cast before. Like, if you saw it cast counter spell, you're like, well, if it's going to counter anything else, I'm going to do that.
I mean, like, if I was the DM for it, I'd maybe be like, okay, you know the spell, so maybe you could try to... Like, you would know the components for the spell, so maybe you try to make the other person do it, but if they don't have it prepared, then it doesn't work. Like, it fails, or I don't know. It's a little weird there, but...
Yeah, because you got the whole medicine thing, so like you're not inside the thing's brain because you're not controlling its mind. You're controlling just its physical frame. I mean,
yeah,
the other thing I think about is like if you're fighting in some cavern and there's some abyss, you could just tell them, all right, go jump in the hole. Because you're controlling a skeleton.
That's probably your better bet. It's kind of just basically a CC. It's crowd control. It's just keeping the thing. Even if you just make it not have a turn, it's still pretty solid.
Yeah, and there's no concentration on this to hold it either. It's like if they save it, they're just stuck there. Right.
Yeah, it's not for long. It's just till the end of their next turn.
Right, but their whole turn though is like there's no
right.
You're not even use your concentration on or anything else. So it's basically make them skip a turn to do something else.
Right. All right. Moving along, we have Skeletal Mastery. You're the master of your own body. You can reshape your bones, including those of your face, to appear as a completely different person. You can cast Alter Self at will, without expending a spell slot or needing to concentrate on the spell. When you cast this spell using this feature, you can only use the Change Appearance or Natural Weapons options. In addition, you also gain the ability to dissolve or restore your own skeleton as an action. While boneless, you can move yourself through sheer muscular and magical control. In this form, your speed becomes 10 feet and you can move through a space as narrow as 5 inches without squeezing. Further, you are considered prone, cannot use your hands, and you can't attack or cast spells. As a bonus action, you can regenerate the bones in your hands to exert finer control over them until the end of your next turn.
Okay.
That's very interesting. Definitely more on the RP side, for sure.
You've got like the top half is RP, the bottom half is like an exploration kind of thing in RP.
Yeah.
So it's
scouting.
Almost exclusively all that kind of stuff, for sure.
It's very flavorful. Like, just being able to just, I'm going to melt my bones and just goop around, you know?
Because it doesn't say, like, you rearrange your skeleton. It just says, no, you can just melt your own bones and just re-solidify them. Like, okay. All right.
It's a little odd.
That's a way to phrase
Interesting. Yeah, it's definitely, Alter Self at will is a pretty big deal. Natural weapons could maybe come into play, but that's really, you're a wizard. You don't really, you're not going to be throwing hands very much anyways. So
yeah, it's like,
not really.
Maybe you go for like a tail so you can try to trip something and then get away because it's prone or whatever. Like, that's about the thing I think of.
Some DM discretion possibly on that.
Yeah.
All right.
And finally, on our capstone, we have Improved Bone Puppetry. So this sounds interesting. You've enhanced your mastery over skeletal manipulation. When a creature fails its saving throw against your bone puppetry feature, your control of that creature lasts for 1 minute instead. Okay, here you go, dominate monster. The creature can't resist your command. It doesn't suffer disadvantage on attack rolls against its allies, nor do they have advantage on saves against effects caused by the creature. It's straight up just dominate monster at this point. The creature can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on a success. You must concentrate on this feature as if you were concentrating on a spell, and damage can't break your concentration. Good to know.
Interesting.
Once under your control, when the creature repeats the saving throw against your bone puppetry, you can choose to expend one additional use of the feature to give the creature disadvantage on the save. You must decide to do so before seeing the result of the roll. Okay, interesting. If you got the big, nasty whatever, if you managed to bone puppetry a dragon, you're like, I'm going to make sure I keep this thing. I'm going to try to spend an extra use to give him a disadvantage on the save. So yeah, at this point, it's straight up dominate monster, but damage can't break the concentration.
Yeah, it's pretty much.
But it has to have a skeleton. You know, there's that limitation still. It has to have a skeleton. But
yeah, I'm just trying to think. I mean, essentially, yes, it's like a dominate. The concentration thing is
a wisdom. Yeah.
Yeah, which it is what it is. I guess depending on what you're targeting, maybe you can go back and forth with each one. Also, it doesn't use a spell slot, which can be a big deal.
Yep, that's correct. You're getting a weaker version. I mean, at level 14, you're getting the weaker version of a level 8 spell that you don't have to spend a spell slot on.
Yeah. All right. Interesting.
You can make the conversation about what level of spell slot you think it is, because it's like dominate person is a 5. So it's like, is this a 6 because it can do bigger things than just humanoids, but it has to have a skeletal
and
structure, it's a strength save. So there's like this, it's somewhere between a 5 and an 8.
Yeah, that's fair. 6.5.
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that.
But yeah, those are all the abilities. Let's just move on into the rating portions. First up is the roleplay. Asterisk, as always. Talking about roleplay, we're talking about interacting with the world around you, interacting with NPCs, non-combat scenarios, avoiding combat, basically things outside the initiative order. Not talking about your class fantasy, history, lore, background that's on you as a player. We can't rate you, but we can rate the abilities gained in the subclass and how they might improve your potential in those roleplay scenarios.
It's like you've done that once or twice. I mean,
I know, right? It's just second nature at this point.
Yeah, I think you got it tattooed like on the inside of your eyelids. You're just reading it like something. It's a teleprompter. It's for going through it.
So with this one, it is really flavorful, which I do like. Though
it is
mechanics is what we're looking for.
That's right.
So the first ability here, you're not really getting any RP value from the bone armor. There's just It's just straight up defense for you.
I mean, maybe like you wanted to be like, this is terrifying. There's bones sticking out of you. If you wanted to try to scare somebody with it.
I mean, depending on circumstances, you could like bonus action gain a bunch of temp HP and be like, I'm going to press that very strange button right there. But before I do so, I'm going to get a bunch of temp HP. So there's maybe like a very niche, like just to buffer yourself for if you're worried about some damage incoming.
Yeah. Everybody else is kind of hurt from combat. You're a wizard, so you haven't been touched much anyway. So you're like, you know what? I'll handle this one.
I'll open the questionable chest.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's some potential there. The medicine check thing is definitely more of where it comes into play. Though that's one particular proficiency, you do get a big bonus to it. And I feel like if you work with your DM and kind of explain how you're trying to use it, it could actually come up pretty regularly. I mean, medicine is pretty broad compared to some of the other ones, which are more specific. Because it could be potentially used in social interactions and a little bit of exploration, depending on how you're using it. Like if you look at someone and they're coughing or they're making certain movements or something, you're like, I'm going to see if I can gauge if they have some kind of illness or, whatever. Are they infected by lycanthropy or whatever? Or there's like blood trailing in the woods. Like depending on how you use it, it could be used in a wide variety of circumstances compared to some other proficiencies for sure.
I think that's the challenge you're into, though, is there's so many different skills that, like, some of them kind of overlap with each other. Like, there are certain parts where medicine, survival, and nature are kind of, like, overlap within each other. So it's like, which one of these most applies to here?
Sure.
It's like,
that can
history versus religion versus all this, these other overlaps and things. It'd probably be better if there were just not quite as many skills, to be honest. That's a different conversation, though.
I mean, for me, usually it's like, as a DM, if you can explain why you should be able to use a specific skill, and I find it makes sense, and it's like, sure.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I agree, because I think at that point your players are trying to like really engage and trying to be thinking about their character, how it applies within the rules, and trying to be involved with the situation. That's the kind of thing you want to encourage.
And there's a difference between like, I want to use an Arcana check on this guy because he looks weird. It's like, okay, like they're trying to like take advantage of rules, like, because your highest stat is this thing. You're like just trying to use that thing for every single check. It's like, okay, come on. It's like, if you can give a valid reason as to why you're able to use that, then sure. If not, then we're gonna move on. So some niche uses on that. But again, of the options for proficiencies, it's probably a pretty solid one. Bone puppetry, some potential RP, but it's only for one turn till the end of the character's next turn. So, and you have limited uses with it. Intelligence modifier. So you can't just be doing it all the time. So you probably wouldn't want to do that. Be very, very, very circumstantial. I mean, maybe there's like one guard and he's near a bridge and you're like,
you go make yourself disappear.
So in that circumstance, then maybe it could make sense, but that could be like kind of like avoiding combat, kind of fall into that category.
Yeah.
Potentially, but that's really niche, I feel like. Skeletal mastery. Now this is, I think, very potent. Alter self at will is a big deal. Very good in social interactions, cities, things like that. If your campaign's set in the woods, not going to come up all that much, because no one really cares what you look like in the woods.
That's right.
Society. So the boneless thing, though, is the counterpoint to that.
Yep.
Because that could be very good for scouting and things, as we mentioned before. So I think that's very solid. Capstone thing just builds on the level 6 one as well. So the bone puppetry. With this one, I'm leaning towards a 3.5 for roleplay, just because I feel like the medicine check stuff is a pretty big deal, and once you get to 10, the alter self at will and the boneless jelly boy ability could be a really big deal, and it fits a wide variety of circumstances. It's just I guess the question is how much we want to weight that.
That's the key. No, I think the 3.5 is a very fair number, because all three, none of these three aspects are very complex or like wow factor within themselves, but they cover a wide variety of things that you can do. And if you're a person who pays attention well in your campaign, you're clever and you can explain some ideas you've got, you can really give yourself a lot of opportunity to make use of these skills without having to get into your RP spells that you have prepared, just by using the features you got on hand. And again, having that alter self at will prevents you from having to even bother with, prepping the spell, or, if you've got it prepared before you hit 10, you can okay, don't need this in the spell book anymore. I can do it all the time for free. I can now put something else in here to replace it. Because I was like, you've got that flexibility that the only other, I think Warlock's the only other place you can even find that, and that's on an Eldritch Invocation. So that's very, very cool. I really like it. 3.5 sounds good to me.
All right.
Obviously, with combat, things are very specific. After the first level thing, obviously, is really, really good for a wizard, because you're one of the two, made of wet paper towel classes as far as your defensives goes, with no armor proficiencies or shield proficiencies, and a D6 hit die. You can't look at things the wrong way without being afraid of your life. So that's the drawback to knowing all the spells that you can ever possibly, or have the chance to know all the possible spells in existence. So this gives you the ability to just, at no cost, just once per short rest, you pop this, you give yourself a bunch of temp HP, and as percentage wise, 2 doesn't seem like much, or 4, 7, it's going to never be 7, but 2, 4, 8, whatever. But it's going to be a decent percentage of your health, really, considered how little you have. And as long as it, that temp HP persists, it's also giving you resistance to the 3 most common damage types in the game, which is also great. Because as a wizard, you're ideally never going to be in melee range of stuff, but for me, it's like, okay, the one thing that you can be afraid of regularly, even if you're trying to avoid them, is it's archers or things throwing projectiles at you. So this also really helps you address that just by being active and giving you the temp HP plus the resistance. So that's really, really good. And that temp HP scales up pretty hard.
Yeah, and the AC too.
Yeah, and the AC. So even if you're going to be harder to hit than any other wizard in existence without multi-classing, obviously getting away from that. So that's fantastic. Your anatomical expert thing, like maybe if you're trying to make a medicine check, is you don't have a druid or a cleric or anything else like that can do any, healing. So maybe you really decide you're trying to figure out what does, like if somebody's thrown a spell or there's some poison or something that's affecting a party member, maybe like you can use a medicine check to at least figure out why it's being caused if you really wanted to in combat. But that's a real specific application there. It's pretty much going to be an RP-based thing. Then obviously we get to the bone puppetry thing and the advanced version of it. Even early on, especially early on, it's going to be good just to help something skip a turn, if nothing else, even if you really can't do anything crazy with it, because they're going to have disadvantage on attack rolls against hitting their own allies. But again, it's kind of, look at it like almost like a banishment spell at the very worst. It's like they're just not going to get a turn.
Right.
They just go, whatever their next turn is, you spend your turn to prevent them having to do anything on their turn. And the way 5th edition combats usually work, if you can target a more powerful creature in the combat, trading your turn and for their turn is usually a good thing. It's usually a win-win for your team, if nothing else. So that's, it's a good thing. The only drawback, again, is the whole strength saving throw thing, for sure.
Exactly. But there's also the circumstances where you could, like you said, just kind of, if there's some kind of terrain or something that you can take advantage of, like you hop into a pool of lava. It's like, right. That's good. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but that doesn't always come up.
You've got a druid that casts Wall of Fire. You're like, go jump in that.
Sure.
Just go jump right in that. So that's, and it doesn't take concentration on forget that one turn early. So if you are concentrating on,
it could be your own Wall of Fire. Right.
Correct. So on your own thing or your own, debuff you put somewhere else, or it doesn't affect you if you're concentrating on haste for somebody else or a whole person or whatever spell you may be concentrating on. It doesn't affect that early on. When you hit the capstone, it does, but it also lasts for a whole minute as long as they keep failing the saving throw. I do like the additional choice of being able to spend an extra use to force disadvantage to try to keep them stuck in there. And it also gets rid of the, being able to hit your allies and, all that kind of stuff. They're not having advantage on saving throws against the effects of the creature or whatever else. It's like a full-on dominate monster at that point with the strength saving throw and all this that we talked about before. So there's give and take there. The number in my head for the combat is hard. I kind of want to go 3.5 here too, because the bone puppetry thing and when it hits the capstone at 14 can be really impactful, but it is a strength saving throw, and they've got to have the bone structure, but it doesn't take a spell slot. So there's a very up in the air thing of how reliably you can really make that work a bunch. You do have a bunch of uses of it, in Eldritch Modifier for day, which is going to be, by level 6, it's going to be at least 4, unless you're really unlucky if you rolled stats or something, or you did random stats, something wild and crazy. But if you wanted to talk me into a 4, maybe might be able to, but 3.5 is what I'm thinking.
See, I was kind of waffling in my head a little bit too between 3.5 and 4, but I think 3.5 is fair just because you have several uses of it. You're limited with what you can do on the turn. Like, you can't even just control the creature and then attack their allies. They have disadvantage. Like, you could do that, but it might not be very effective. And it's only till the end of their next turn. Right. Until you get to capstone. And it's strength save. So, like, while it is great when it happens, I just feel like it's not going to be consistent enough unless you're just fighting stuff that's either not big or you're fighting casters regularly. Just because... like if something's fast, it's usually not strong. So like on quick things, it's probably all right. On casters, they're, magic inclined. They're not going to be strong. So everything else usually has a decent strength score or a very high strength score. Yeah.
But in fairness, could you imagine if this was an intelligence saving throw, how busted that would be?
That would be brutal. That would be absolutely brutal for sure.
So it makes sense that it's just, I figured it'd be a strength or a constitution or even wisdom saving throws. All would make more sense than definitely intelligence.
Honestly, I could make an argument too for charisma. I could see it. Because you're like pulling against their like innate magic inside of themselves, like against that. Yeah. Try to like force control.
That would also be
like
really brutal too.
That would have been rough.
That's the second most brutal save. Try to make.
Yeah. So I think 3.5 is fair for that.
Of course, the level 2 ability is great for survivability, but it is once for short rest. Like once it's gone, you're back to being a baby wizard until another rest.
Again, too, it's the AC is probably the biggest thing. I'm just getting a free couple AC. Now, it sounds really crazy when you think about level 20, you're getting 40 temp HP and plus 6 ACs. Like, at level 20, things have like plus 15 to hit. So, now they're just having 50% chance again to hit you.
Yeah.
And also, things deal 60 damage in one turn. So, it's not that great. And also, at lower levels, your level 2, you're getting 4 temp HP with resistance. It's like, it might stop one hit.
It's going to stop one attack. Because it dealt
much.
8 to you. So, okay, now it only deals 4. Congrats.
I think the sweet spot is probably like 8 to 12-ish range where you're going to get the most value from it, potentially, just because of the way scaling and stuff is.
Yeah, I think 12's right, because it's that third of your level for the AC, so you would get a full plus 4 to your AC at 12. That feels like the right. Because it does not specify. I would like to add this real quick. I know we're getting deep in the woods again. But it does not specify that it doesn't stack with any other armor class buffs you have. So
like if you had shield or something.
You could mage armor first and then do this.
Yeah.
Which would get you up into a very respectable AC for anything that's not heavy armor.
Yeah.
Really.
And that makes a good point too, discussing synergy, because as a spellcaster, especially a wizard, you have lots of options for spells, especially things with shield, mage armor, like you're talking about. You could have a pretty decent AC with those, though it is,
and throw a shield on top of that, like as a reaction, something is going to hit you. You're like, no, you're not.
Yeah, you're getting a big buff to physical attacks. And then you have counter spell, so you're not really too worried about magic really either. Once you get to that point.
Not if you don't want to be. No.
I think just going along the same vein on this, the level 6 and 14 abilities, I do like that they have internal synergy where it improves at a higher level, but again, still it doesn't really fix much of the issues that it has early on. Yes, you can use an extra charge of it to try to give disadvantage, but then you're only going to be able to use it 2.5 times,
Yeah.
You could burn through, you only have, 5 uses a day anyways. So it is what it is on that. You're not going to have a ton of uses. And it's kind of just what you might save one, or I say that because you might save like 1 or 2, maybe 3 spell slots because of that ability, which is great, but I don't think it's anything to write home about on that. I think the Skeletal Mastery is going to save you way more spell slots.
Agreed.
Than anything else.
Agreed.
Because that lets you do RP stuff without having to cast Enlarge Reduce, Alter Self, things like that. So I think from a synergy standpoint, I would lean probably towards a 4 because it's giving you, it's freeing up lots of spell slots for you that you can use for other things.
Right.
And it's giving you some solid defense options, a little bit of control options with the bone puppetry if you can get it to be used at regular basis. Even, once or twice a day is still pretty solid.
And like you said, it would prevent you having to cast as many shields because you're already going to cast major armor on yourself to start with, and you go with the bone armor. Even at level 2, you're still having an AC of 14. Before anything else, so that's
be respectable.
That's better than what some other people may have. Hit 14. Definitely any other wizard's going to have in your class. That's for dang sure.
Yeah,
or any sorcerer for that matter.
Yeah. All right.
4 sounds right.
Okay, sounds good. Well, that's going to be it for today, guys. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, when all of our new videos are coming out. Let us know in the comments down below what other subclasses or things you want to see from STEINHART'S, from the
There's
Dungeon
a lot
Dudes,
of good ones to look through.
New book as well. Yeah, so these are kind of our 2 big focuses right now, these 2 big books. And let us know down below what you want to see, and we'll bring that to you. We have some new stuff coming as well, so stay tuned to the channel for that. As always, guys, thanks for watching.